Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, November 20th, 2025, getting into the 20s in November, which means Thanksgiving is right around the corner. In fact, we are a week out from Thanksgiving. This is Thursday. Yeah, so next week, I don't know what we're going to do. That's a good question. Very often, we contemplate having a morning show during Thanksgiving while everyone is doing their prep and keep you company while you're doing your turkey cooking or something like that. But we'll have to see whether that's in the cards for this year. And then Friday, it's a big day Friday. I'm probably not going to be getting in line to do any Black Friday shopping. That's just never been a thing for me. But we'll have to prepare. And that's on top of having to prepare, turkey and stuffing and all the other things that go along with it. But suffice to say, for right now, we're rather busy. And so we got to cram all this stuff in here so that you have something, I guess, to talk about at the Thanksgiving table. And if you're one of those families, those mythical families, they are real. But I don't have one like this. But where you get a weirdo uncle who's going to come and do MAGA stuff at your table. Well, one, you might consider just saying, you should have your turkey with someone else, for instance. You could do Friendsgiving, and a bunch of you could get together and scream about George Soros, and we'll just eat. But in the meantime, we'll at least prepare you, no matter who shows up at your table, for what you can and should be discussing and how to do it. So we'll have all of the details. Greg Dworkin is here to take one more shot at rounding up the week. Chaos beginning once again. We're back in the old mode. You don't have to wait for the weekend for the real chaos to happen anymore. Mostly, though, I guess, because the whole week there's been the undercurrent of Epstein files discussion, which means Trump thinks, oh, people are talking about me. I should talk about me, too. And it creates more chaos. And, all right, so we've got a general outline for how we're going to approach the chaos. Been discussing it with Greg. And Greg has another entry for our musical collection, which I guess we could use as your fanfare, Greg, if we need to.
A little too long for that.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, it could take us 9 or 10 minutes to get through the fanfare. That's true. But we'll do instead, we'll just say, Greg's here. He'll set up for you what we're going to be listening to. It's something he's mentioned and been waiting to play for us. Another video game entry.
Well,
right?
I happen to be a fan of 40s swing music, 30s swing music, even 50s swing music when it comes down to it.
Really, whenever you swing, it's okay with Greg.
But this
Whichever
is
way you swing,
a particularly clever parody of the Andrews Sisters. In the parody, these ladies are called the Herschel Sisters.
All right.
Which is,
I don't know.
Which is about as much anti-wasp as you can possibly get, and I just thought it was pretty funny. But they happen to be very skilled. And this little jingle for Borst, B-O-A-R-S-T, for Borst Rockets, by the conglomerate that sells everything, including rockets for your rocket ship. But they also, try to make money off of everything. So if they could find a solvent-based glue that they can turn into a sandwich, they will. And this is called Borst Rocket, so enjoy the music.
Come on now. Oh, I see. There's more buttons to press. Oh, yeah. Oh, you wanted me to do that. Oh, all right.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Enjoy it, because you should be in a good mood about Trump's bad poll numbers.
Right. This is the uplifting part of the show. So's the rest of it. But...
Borst Rockets. Borst Rockets. Put a rocket in your pocket and launch your launch today.
Because, you need a jingle to go with your
When you miss the cough or chow, but you want to eat something now, you'll go for lunch with Borst Rockets. When your team is getting creamed and your winger's out of steam, recharge your tossball crew with Borst Rockets. Borst Rockets. Borst Rockets.
Well, I get you now.
In your pocket and launch your lunch today.
Cute.
And, just more music. But
so
it's
kind
cool.
of, yeah, all right. So you can use them
If
for
you're in
anything.
tossball is a underlying theme. You can get tossball cards that give you particular points and skills, but it's just fun stuff.
Okay, I'm aware of this now.
Yeah, well, see, the thing about
Thank you.
sisters singing is that they have the same skull structure, the same sinus structure. I mean, they can just
very technical.
a vibrating melody, harmony between them, amongst them, that it's just really hard to do if you're not related. So Andrew's sister's wonderful. These sisters, I don't know if they're related.
Yeah, right. Who knows?
I don't even know.
It could be all
Herschel.
electronic. I don't even know if there's more than one of them.
Exactly.
We don't know for sure. Could be AI.
But it's fun stuff. Yeah. And again, the reminder, video games have great music just like movies do. So appreciate it even if you don't play.
I was introduced to something I've missed entirely. I think it's easier to pick up on if you have younger kids. The younger kids are into K-pop Demon Slayer something.
K-pop stuff, huh?
Yeah, but I think it's partly video game-ish and partly cartoon-ish. They wouldn't say cartoon. It's anime, right. I guess. But this one I've missed entirely, and apparently the fan base is really super young, very, very under
K-pop
10.
is great stuff, But I was corrected by one of our listeners. You, in fact, are an unk because your age. But right. Unfortunately, am not an unk. I'm too old. I've aged out of it, so I'm an old head.
Yeah, I did. I saw that one. That was a note from Darwin, who corrected us on that. So I asked about that at home, and I guess I wouldn't feel too bad about it. I may be an old head as well, just not to Darwin. That's the issue. It's relative to who's talking to you, because my 25-year-old said, "Oh, if I were hanging out with a bunch of kids if you asked me about who's listening to the music from and watching K-pop, it's Demon, not Dragon, Slayer, well, then they would, if I was with them, they'd think I was an unk."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, if you're 12, 15, a 25-year-old is an unk.
Yeah, I'm not making it up.
Okay, me neither. And I'm not pretending I understand either. I'm merely repeating.
Let's talk about something different. Let's talk about visual memes.
All right. Oh.
I sent you one to start off the list here that I'm doing today.
This is radio.
And it's a Simpsons meme. Okay. It's good old Bart Simpson looking forlorn.
Oh, not again. Bart.
And the header is this is the worst poll of his term. And Homer helpfully shows up and starts to lecture Bart and says, "This is the worst poll of his term so far."
Yes.
And of course,
everybody loves that one.
Nobody likes it when, you get lectured to and corrected. But in fact, Homer's right.
Yes. I think the original was, "This is the worst day of my life."
So far.
It's that much funnier in the original. Like German. All right.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off because it's all part and parcel of the idea that Trump is not only doing badly, his aura of invincibility is gone. He's on the downhill. Trump 2.0 is becoming Trump 1.0.
He's melting.
He's incompetent. He's losing. And he's doing terribly in the polls, worse than he did in his first term in some cases. And this is conservative Jeff Blahar, esoteric CD on X. I mistyped it there. Esoteric CD. He does often music reviews.
Oh, all right.
Hence the CD title.
I see.
But
Not
we chat all the
districts.
time on Twitter. He's conservative. I'm liberal. We have different political views, but he's a decent guy. This is the week where he often writes for National Review. This is the week where suddenly the same thought has dawned simultaneously upon everybody in politics. The Trump era is over. It's ending disastrously. It's not just Tim Dillon, who he played at the beginning of the week. And it will not be repeated. Hence, MAGA's foot soldiers are now positioning themselves for the inevitable aftermath. And they're all pursuing self-interested, mutually incompatible strategies. Tucker and the Groypers recognize the exhaustion of Trumpism and is seeking to retcon, that is to say, retroactively fake stuff.
Confuse everybody, I guess. I don't know.
Construct a different reality. Replace it with their own false Buchananite intellectual lineage and appeals to destroy the system as is. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a true populist, however stupid she may be,
Well,
is coming
that's what
out as a
populist means.
champion of disillusioned MAGA, broken promises and betrayals, another angle. Either way, you can see the movement tattering and fraying into particulate fragments right before your very eyes. Charlie Kirk's assassination threw open the floodgates in a psychological way, but the struggle was on long before that, basically once his term's cake was baked with tariffs. Now, he doesn't say this, but I've seen other conservative writers saying, I don't know if you've noticed, but like the Charlie Kirk murder is like ancient history.
Yes.
Nobody cares anymore.
Only unks know about it.
The only thing that's happening is that his hangers-on are now trying to either monetize it or somehow aggrandize themselves based on it.
Yes. I was close to him. I was his chief advisor.
I'm his heir. I read him once.
Right.
Vote for me. That's the conservatives, Bart Simpson lamenting that things are falling apart. This one is from a Republican gossip sheet whisperer Axios, which I found interesting.
Okay.
And again, remember, I like to read Playbook or Punchbowl or Axios or sometimes even just the Politico main story stuff. The way I like to read the Boston Globe the day after the Yankees beat the Red Sox in Boston. It's just fun to read, All
right.
So this is Axios, the Republican whisperers, Mike Allen of all people. Behind the curtain,
I'm calling
red
a Republican
alert.
cat. Yes.
Everywhere Republicans look, they see big political trouble. Worse, they think things will get much bleaker before better as AI spreads through 2026. Now, this is a separate piece because they have AI advertisements right under the piece, which I thought was hilarious.
How do you know?
What they're saying is that AI means that if you're young and looking for a job, your chances of getting a job just got a whole lot harder. You realize that. And the reason you're depressed isn't because of current situation. It's not that terrible. But your prospects are just getting worse and worse and worse, and that's why you're upset.
This is true.
You're not upset about current earnings. You're upset about future earnings.
Yes. If you're wondering, like, how long will I have an in-house edit suite upstairs, there's your answer. There's nobody else out there employing these guys.
Yeah.
So
that's all real, but that's why they happen to mention AI. They see it in the top November races Republicans do, where they got cooked. They see it in rising internal MAGA drama and division. We just talked about that a bit, and we've been talking about it all week. And they increasingly see it in private and public polls showing President Trump's persistently plummeting popularity, pooping out previously,
pusillanimous, purgatory, okay.
Right.
Cool.
It's actually pretty funny.
That was good.
On populist issues. So why it matters.
Okay.
Step back and survey the political landscape. Republicans aren't only losing elections, they're consistently losing support on prices, the economy, in all polls, big or small, Republican or Democrat, over a several-month period, and you can't spin yourself out of reality. People are depressed, a Trump loyalist to the barricades told us. 5 new polls this week show Republican problems might be even deeper and more worrisome than many fear.
Okay.
So let's go through those because I think they're all instructive in their own ways. Fox News poll out last evening. And in many ways, this is the worst of them. For them.
The worst. Yeah.
Jacob Rubashkin, analyst, says, arguably the most worrisome poll of Trump's second term and potentially first term, too. 41% approval, 58% disapprove in a Fox poll, which means everybody on Fox hears the results. That's why Fox polls are so important. It's not like they're the most accurate poll out there. They're decent. They're very good. They use good.
Do they ever bury their own polling?
But they don't bury their own polling. Okay. They talk about their poll. They paid for it. They want you to know what they paid for.
Interesting.
58 is the highest Fox has ever had of his disapproval, and 45% strongly disapprove.
Okay.
There is 61% disapproval on the economy, 64% disapproval on healthcare, which is also an all-time high.
Yeah.
And I wrote this on Twitter, there is this conceit among political journalists that in order to appear to be neutral, they don't do this with Democrats, only with Republicans. They didn't do this for Biden. They only do it for Trump. that if you get bad news like that, you have to say, well, this is what it is right now, but he could always bounce back.
Okay.
The conceit is we will not acknowledge that things actually could get worse. Homer Simpson is right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they won't, they're Bart, but they don't acknowledge what Homer is saying to them. This is a really bad Fox poll.
Okay.
Voters said the White House is doing more harm than good in the economy. 46% said that they've been hurt. Only 15% say they've been helped. 39% say Trump has made no difference. You can't hide those results. Now, their second poll isn't really a poll. It's an update from an analyst named Edelman. He has a trust barometer report showing Americans are deeply fearful and distrustful of the Trump administration's top domestic fixation, accelerating AI. Big majorities are pessimistic about the technology broadly and super anxious robots will eat their jobs. The global poll found that younger people in the U.S., 18 to 34, are much more distrustful of AI than their counterparts around the world. Edelman said people might believe that AI is globalization 2.0. The jobs will shift out of our country. Jobs will go to somebody younger or cheaper. Obama, to his peril, ignored what globalization meant for the politics of voting. And what Axios is imputing here is that Trump should not, because it's a big deal underlying, even if it's not specific.
Yes. You have to tell him, you should whisper in his ear, because I'm not certain he knows what peril is.
Well, it means people don't like
to his peril. Okay. Oh, he did it to his peril. What does his peril look like? Yeah. What he did what to his peril? Where
is his peril? His peril, Wisconsin? Yeah. Is that a place I've been? I don't know.
You need to understand, sir. That's bad. I see.
Number 3, in Wisconsin, the swingiest of swing states. Now, this is wrong because it's an MU law poll and happens to be national poll. So why they threw in that Wisconsin is the swingiest of swing states is because they probably misunderstood the poll.
Is that where
a New Market Law School poll shows Democrats are more motivated and more popular heading into the 2026 elections. Voters are flunking Trump on the economy and inflation. Is the economy stupid? Well, why did Latinos and Hispanics switch votes in New Jersey and Virginia? It's the economy, stupid. These numbers are brutal. 36% approve of the Trump economy, 28% approve of his handling of inflation and the cost of living. It's probably only lower than the only thing lower is his Epstein handling. Looking to the future, 60% think Trump will drive prices even higher, and 27% believe he'll lower them. That's bad. People think you suck, and you're going to suck more as time goes on. That is not a poll result you want.
Yeah. I mean, that's a basic thing. You want the numbers.
Well, we'll just turn it around, say the political journalists. Yeah, right.
What they don't know is
we
you
talked
can
about
have
the Maris poll that
reduction.
came out. Democrats have a 14-point lead over Republicans on the midterm generic ballot. It's not the only double digit. If the 2026 election for Congress were held today, which party's candidate are you more likely to vote for? This is the first time in more than 3 years that Democrats have had a notable advantage. A year ago, it was split 48-48 in the same poll. And then Fox Business, separate channel than Fox News, featured a Reuters poll from Ipsos showing Trump's approval rating falling to 38, the poll's lowest since his return to power, weighted down by his handling of the cost of living and by the Epstein fracas. Nate Silver's approval average is 41.5. G. Elliott Morris's is 40. The Real Clear polling average is 42.7, which gives you an idea of how much our RCP sucks. Because they cherry pick their polls and they leave out the bad ones.
And it's still 42.
Big picture, Trump, and they got caught doing this red-handed. So, yeah. The big picture, Trump officials know they need to shift this perception, yet lavish black-tie dinners with the Saudis or gold-plated White House renovations make it harder to convince voters Trump is on the case. Then they go into the Republicans' unity fracturing. If the economy goes south, the perceptions of it remain in the cellar. And there's a decent enough jobs report out today, which is really October because it was delayed. And the rest of the report won't be out till December. Trump will have the same problem Biden did, telling people their feelings and perceptions are wrong. So the Trump officials are betting on a better economy next year. Too late. Not going to help you. Steve Bannon, whose War Room podcast is one of the most muscular MAGA machines, told us he hopes this red alert will inspire action. But Trump is right that Trump and Republicans do well when he's on the ballot. He's not going to be on the ballot. And then they go into that analysis we read the other day from Tim Carney, who says Republicans should be really gloomy because they're going to get worse. Now, the Democratic brand remains in the dumps, but most polls show a generic Democrat beating a generic Republican for Congress, and 2/3 of independents down on just about everything Republicans do. So the chances of a fast, decisive economic surge aren't high. You always have to throw that in about Democrats by completely misunderstanding Democrats. That's what I like about Axios. They're pretty good at explaining Republican thinking. They're awful at explaining Democratic thinking. They just don't get it. The reason Democratic numbers are down is because Democrats are really unhappy with people like Chuck Schumer. The Bernie group, the Bernie wing of the party thinks that the moderates don't go far enough. The moderates think that the Bernie wing is suggesting things that you can't win on. Everybody's happy that Mandami won, but how often are you going to repeat that in other places? And the answer is not at all. Even Mamdani is tamping down the idea of, for example, primarying Hakeem Jeffries. Don't do it, he says to his own people. I know you got somebody from our side who's ready to do it. Don't do it. Bad idea. He's going to turn out to be AOC, a very practical democratic socialist, which is great.
Good.
Fantastic. Party builder, which is great.
It's a way to get more of them.
He's keeping moderate Jessica Tisch as the police commissioner. I mean, he's making all the right
Tisch for commish.
Tisch for commish, right? So he's on there. This is the
yes, sorry.
This is the Maris poll. We talked about the fact that it was a 14-point lead,
right?
But 39% of Americans blame the Democrats in Congress for the government shutdown. 34% Trump, 26% Republicans. If you add Republicans plus Trump, that's a much larger figure.
Yeah, it does.
The fact that 39% of Americans blame the Democrats in Congress doesn't matter if they vote for Democrats. So the more important number is that there's a 14-point lead on voting for Democrats. And if you look, I blame the Democrats in Congress for the government shutdown because they're the ones that shut down the government.
Yes.
Did they have reason to? That's a different question.
Yeah. That's true too, right? And shades of the old healthcare question. I don't approve of the ACA because I don't think it goes far enough.
Right, exactly right. So, just forget about that. You can look at it all you want to. The bottom line is who you're going to vote for. How do we know who we're going to vote for? Look at the last election a week ago, Tuesday. Okay. Now, when thinking about the issue that should be the Trump administration's top priority, Americans weigh in. Lowering prices, 57%. Everything else is less. Immigration, 16. Crime, 9. Ukraine, Russia, 7. Peace between Israel and Gaza, 6. Eliminating drug traffic from Latin America, 4.
I was wondering if that was even going to be on the list.
Trump keeps citing and touting these things that he's doing that nobody really cares about in a political sense. That is to say, is it a motivation to vote? We care that people are innocent fishermen are getting blown up and there's no due process and rule of law is gone. We get that. We care about it. But as far as a political issue, it's not a political issue.
I was waiting to see whether that even made the list.
It's a political issue. Yeah.
Mostly from the polling perspective, just because when you were saying, well, Trump's top priority ought to be something, and everybody going to the economy and stuff. But for a president who is saying we are in an active war, with we don't know who, but he keeps saying, using the same language, that we're at war with. That's usually the top priority when you're in a war. Right. But it's not only last on the list, it gets 4%.
I'm trying to start a war, and you guys aren't helping me.
I don't understand why you're not interested in starting a war.
Right. Reuters poll. President Donald Trump's approval rating fell to 38, lowest since his return to power. Americans unhappy about his handling of the high cost of living. Have I mentioned that?
Yes.
And the investigation into the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The 4-day poll, which concluded on Monday, comes as Trump's grip on his Republican Party shows signs of weakening. Fox poll. Voters say White House is doing more harm than good in the economy. All right. And 76% of voters view the economy negatively. That's worse than the 67% who felt that way in July and the 70% who felt that way about Biden's economy. Large numbers overall and among Republicans say the costs for groceries, utilities, healthcare, and housing have gone up this year. You can tell people they haven't. They know you're lying.
Yes. Which is great. I mean, he loves telling people that. And by the way, you've been getting a lot of $2 gas lately?
Yeah. Politics and Poll Tracker.
Yeah.
Marquette. The Marquette poll. Generic congressional
Wisconsin.
ballot for likely voters. Democratic 53, Republican 44. We're moving away from those 2 and 3 point Democratic leads on the generic ballot.
Yes.
And we're getting up into 7, 8, 9, 10, up to 14.
Yeah.
So I just thought I would mention that.
We're reeling the outlier in retroactively.
And then Marquette also had a really interesting thing. Marquette Law School this morning has a national survey which finds that 55% say the Department of Justice has filed unjustified cases against Trump's political opponents.
That's how many people have read the news, because
we'll get to the legal stuff after the break.
Yes.
But what's interesting to me is sort of as a control, they said, well, how do you feel about the cases, state and federal, that have been brought against Trump?
All right.
Okay. And let's just look at the independents.
All
right. The independents feel that the cases against Trump, 68% were justified and 29% were unjustified. Whereas Republicans feel that 23% justified, 77% unjustified. So that's your baseline. When you ask about what they're doing now with Trump opponents, not what they did against Trump back in the day, 77 to 23 Republicans felt that it was unjustified against Trump. 48 to 52, what's going on right now. They don't have the same kind of Republican back up for what Trump is doing with these Comey, Letitia James cases that they did against him. They just don't have it.
Well, I mean, he's made it pretty plain that he wasn't going to have a basis for charging those people with crimes. He admitted it ahead of time. Right. I don't care. Charge him with something.
Seems to me, looking at the numbers, independents and Democrats, that people aren't quite as familiar with these cases. But I just think it's interesting that he hasn't captured Republicans with it.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I think there's still more news, as it turns out. We were looking around, and there are other things that people care about, and we want to address that.
Right. So this is a Siena poll, which happened to be of New York State. Kathy Hochul, approval favorability ratings down a little, maintains a huge lead over Anthony Delgado for the primary, but also a huge lead over Elise Stefanik, 20 points down from 25. Now, when you look at the poll of her versus Stefanik, it's not that she dropped. It's that Stefanik came up a little bit.
Okay. I mean, the preceding election was over, and now everyone's focusing on this one. And they say, oh, yeah, I remember who Elise Stefanik is. All right. So she got a couple more points.
So you can try and pretend, that this is going to be a close race. It's not going to be a close race. She has a strong lead over Stefanik the week after Stefanik declared her candidacy. 8 months out from the primary, Hochul has a commanding lead over Anthony Delgado among all Democrats. But with Stefanik, Hochul continues to run very strongly with Democrats, 78 to 9. Republicans, Stefanik leads 79-11, up from 68 to 15 in September, and Hochul leads 40-36 among indies. Hochul has a 42-point lead in New York City and leads by 9 points in the downstate suburbs. If you combine New York City plus the suburbs, it's over.
Yes.
She has a very narrow 3 points upstate. Well, duh. That's
Right.
not how you win in New York City. And that's not how you win in New York State. New York City's half the electorate. And so, you if you take that plus the suburbs, you win. Upstate tends to be more conservative. It's more rural. That's fine. Some of that is Trump country. Stefanik's district is upstate New York, for example.
Yes.
But she's going to get clobbered.
Yeah. Good. I'm looking forward to that. How long do I have to wait? A year?
Yeah. Now,
Oh,
Chuck
all right.
Schumer has his worst ever favorability rating. Schumer had a 63-20 favorability in 2005, just as an example. Today, Schumer is viewed unfavorably by 74% of Republicans, 61% of independents, and Democrats is 45-43.
Okay.
Now, Schumer is paying the price for being leader. We all understand this, and Senate leaders don't run to be popular. But he's in his 70s, and I'm not so sure he's going to stick around for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to beat him in the primary. He may just retire.
I see. If that actually were to happen, she's doing a great job playing down the possibility anyway.
Right. So in the end, how do you think the Hochul-Stefanik election is going to go? New Yorkers favor Democrats in generic congressional ballot 55-32.
Yes. Okay.
If that's your background, essentially Stefanik has to run better than your generic Republican, and Stefanik is Stefanik, and there's no way that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that just gives you an idea of the background. It's not just New York, it's happening everywhere. Now, the last polling piece I'll do for today is G. Elliott Morris, who has a really interesting piece this morning. Most Americans aren't ideological, and they just want a party that lowers prices and works for the people. Which, by the way, I'm telling you, is why Republicans are doing so badly in all these polls.
Oh. Well, let's keep watching that then.
Respondents were allowed to write as much or as little as they wanted to the question. In a few words, what would your ideal political party argue for or believe in? Things like democracy, lower prices, whatever. When reading
democracy.
Through the open-ended responses to our poll, 5 broad visions of Americans' ideal political parties emerge. They're not just left versus right versus center, but they're a mix.
5.
Okay. Most Americans say they want their ideal political party to focus on affordability, general well-being, no ideological content. That's what people want.
Promote the general welfare, if you will.
Generally right-leaning positions are 26. Generally left-leaning positions are 26. One of those rare polls that show them equal. We are not a center-right nation. We're the rent is too damn high nation.
Oh, well, he was very popular with that.
Yeah, but he got a point. Right. So the right-leaning party picture an ideal party built on smaller, limited government. The left-leaning party people want an ideal party that uses government to expand the social safety net, reduce inequality, and protect the vulnerable. People have to understand that those are competing visions that are essentially equal. They cancel each other out. But everybody is into affordability. You can see that because Trump is now into affordability.
Yes, it was a hoax last week. Now it is. I'm the master of
affordability. For getting his attention.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? That's, I don't think that it's a revelation to most people, but it occurs to me. I'm actually thinking back to Occupy Wall Street. And, well, what did they really... Well, one thing they did do was bring the certainly the phrase economic inequality into vogue. That's true. They did do that. Zoran Mamdani brought affordability into vogue and won an election.
Well, that's the thing. You cannot have policy without politics.
Yes.
And one of the huge mistakes, we talked about this at the time, we talked about this many times after.
Yeah.
Occupy Wall Street said we're not doing politics.
They did say that.
Enormous mistake.
Everybody else said, actually, you probably should do politics. And I know it feels like ancient history, but an academic book in whether any of Occupy Wall Street laid the groundwork for the election of Zoran Mandami, even just to the state senate and then on to the mayoralty. But mayoralty, I guess. Yeah, I'm not going to write that because I'm not an academic and it sounds boring. The work part of it sounds boring. It sounds like a good book. Somebody write that. I'm not going to read it either. By the way, could you tweet the book?
On this. The heart's in the right place. Just don't do stupid things.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I think
politics is a really stupid thing to do.
And I think the
just
natural
like defund the police turned
out
to be a really stupid slogan, even though the sentiment behind it was, very, very appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that this should be a vindication for you. Is like, well, they did this thing that was an ideological position and then said we're also not going to pursue the politics. But over the course of a decade, the people, I think, who were likely involved, I mean, I don't know what Zoran Mamdani's actual connection to, if any, Occupy Wall Street really was. I feel like those ideological fellow travelers, though, finally said, well, I'll tell you what, if you give me the right combination of factors, I will do politics. Yeah. And if that's the case, then you really have something.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to get to. It may not be the case that you can convert the issue of defund the police into something proactively positive that wins at the polls, even though it's got a lot of power to it. But on the other hand, a lot of the people that just uplifted Mamdani into office or into his new office also happen to carry that idea in their head. And they may, in fact, find a way to make policy that's doable and livable and achievable out of it.
Right. But if you concentrate on affordability, it's a winner. That's right.
Make
and
the
at
police
the same
affordable.
Time, as Mamdani is telling his fellow Democratic socialists, the way to do this is to win on politics, and a loss on politics is a Don Quixote attacking the windmills approach to trying to unseat Hakeem Jeffries. Don't do it.
Yeah, all right.
Wait and do Schumer.
Yeah, that's one thing, and you're right.
Jeffries
you
endorsed
definitely
me.
want to
Schumer didn't.
Calculate
just
this.
Wait.
Oh, right. There is that, and you should acknowledge that.
Right. He didn't say that. I'm saying
this.
That's what he's thinking. And by the way, by the time you get to Schumer, you'll see what's going on. And if AOC, who herself is a Democratic socialist, wants to challenge him and win, good for us. Think of the politics. Don't just think of the policy. Be smart.
All right.
I like that way of governing.
And and she also, I think, is fairly aware, as many political strategists are. You want to be pretty sure of what your outcome is going to be. Like if your movement is hot because of momentum, don't make your next race be such a struggle upstream that you kill all the momentum that you gained
let's
from the
put it
first
this
time.
way. If I won the presidency because people are really upset with the Biden economy, let's concentrate on foreign policy.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't want to, yeah. I wouldn't do that.
Well, it just happened.
Oh. Well,
and guess what? Not working.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk some legal stuff.
Okay.
I love talking about legal stuff because I think it's fascinating and I know nothing about it because I am not a lawyer and I don't play one on the internet.
Well, in that case, let's definitely cover it.
So let's read from people who do cover it. This is Kyle Cheney, who's one of the judicial reporters for Politico.
Okay.
Breaking: prosecutors in the Comey case just told the judge that they're under orders from the Deputy Attorney General's office, I think that's Todd Blanche.
Yeah, I think so.
Not to disclose whether career prosecutors wrote a memo recommending against indicting Comey prior to Halligan going to the grand jury. This is in the Jim Comey case.
They did. Yeah.
USA Attorney Tyler Lemons told Judge Nachmanoff, Judge Nachmanoff, that he hasn't gotten permission to disclose what could be considered privileged or work product. He did say he has to review a possible declination memo and seen the drafts. Comey's trying to say, look, there was a declination memo that they overruled, therefore they're obviously going after me like for political reasons. And the thing was that the Lindsey Halligan team wouldn't even acknowledge the existence of this memo. And this is one of these things that you look at and say, well, that seems like it's good for Comey and one of those things that should derail the prosecution. Now, there's things like challenges to the legitimacy of the prosecutor, Like, is Lindsey Halligan properly appointed?
Right.
What's going on with the grand jury process? More on that in a moment.
Yeah.
And the motives for bringing the case in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have all of this, but then later on in this same hearing, holy crap, DOJ just admitted in court the grand jury in the Comey case never saw the complete indictment, and the final indictment may never have been voted on at all by the grand jury.
Mm-hmm.
This is by a lawyer who says, in 35 years of law practice, I've never heard of anything like this. And I was talking to David before the show started about this. Some of the missteps that Lindsey Halligan has done make it seem like the judge should dismiss this. Yeah. This one makes it look like the judge will dismiss.
Yeah, almost.
As many other lawyers have said, there is no precedent for this because it's never happened.
This is insane. I am not certain. And it is a really interesting conundrum. And I think that the judge is doing I don't know. I don't know whether I was going to say an admirable job in dealing with it. I'm not really certain how it's being dealt with.
Leave it at that.
But I mean, to illustrate, I guess, how impossible this situation is. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, it's never happened before. And it's another thing still to say it's never happened before because it's not the kind of thing that can happen. You have to warp reality and you have to intentionally warp reality in order to make it happen. So we don't know how to deal with this because we've never landed here because no one's ever warped reality this much.
Well, but let me put it in simple lay people's terms.
Okay.
Lindsey Halligan was cheating.
Yes. Forging, like the Electoral College votes, I would say. Essentially, yes, she handed the court an indictment of, and not just any indictment, a federal indictment of the former director of the FBI, who kind of knows how these things are supposed to work, for one thing, and is an important official. And that everyone kind of recognizes the charges as being trumped up, no pun intended, except, that reference is intended. So it's a very, very, very important case. And basically what she did was convened a grand jury, and they, buzzed about in a room, and they said a certain thing. And then Lindsey Halligan basically just wrote whatever she wanted on a piece of paper and said, this is an indictment. Here you go, judge. And the judge says, did the grand jury write this? No, we're not doing that part, actually.
Well, as I understand it, what happened is that she presented her bill of particulars,
there's a reason
or whatever
for it,
they're called,
Mm-hmm.
and the grand jury declined to indict on a couple of them or one of them.
Yeah.
And that's why she had to rewrite it.
Yes, and that would have been a thing.
So she rewrote it in
do.
a way that said, okay, you guys decided that you were going to do this, just say yes to this.
Yes.
Well, you have to formally rewrite everything, present it for a vote, and do it the proper way because, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the grand jury is the whole foundation of a fair judicial system.
It's in
because
the
your peers get to look at everything and decide.
Right.
And if you're going to keep that information from them, it's not fair. She's cheating.
Yes.
And that's what she did to get her indictment.
She
and
skipped
absolutely
steps.
This should not stand. This is outrageous, and she should be disbarred.
Now, yes, that should be the answer to that one. And I think a measure of how unprecedented and how crazy the thing is, the judge is basically stuck. Like normally you'd say, well, okay, I mean, if there's not a valid indictment, then, case dismissed and we're all gone here. That's the way you would see it on television. The problem that the judge is now realizing is, okay, everybody, and then thought balloon over the judge's head. I want to say case dismissed, but the problem is there's not a case to dismiss. What am I ruling on here? What is this thing? It's not a case. I can't dismiss it. I can't issue a ruling on it. It doesn't exist. Why am I here? Why are any of us here? Are we here? Open the box and find out.
I don't understand. Why can't he just say, listen, your actions clearly indicate that this is vindictive, and that was the whole point of this.
Well, that would be a different kind of dismissal, but even so, it would be interesting. You know what's a really great trick? Well, if the judge says, I'm dismissing this because it's a politically motivated and vindictive indictment. There's no there, and you're doing this for political purposes. And if the DOJ was to say, aha, same problem. What case are you dismissing if there's no case? Huh? What do you mean? Oh, well, I'm not the prosecutor legally, and the grand jury didn't indict him. So between the two of those things, you can't dismiss the case because it's not there. Now, I mean, one thing the judge could do, two things the judge could do. The judge could actually try to rescue this situation. And if they did, I bet this Supreme Court would probably uphold it by saying there's a premise or a precedent for saying, well, you could argue that the error here is net harmless by saying the argument that the claim is that the grand jury was presented with 3 counts and they said no to number 1 and yes to numbers 2 and 3. Then there was a paperwork failure, and Halligan, because she's never prosecuted a case, thought it would be sufficient to say, well, if the grand jury had a piece of paper and did vote on it and did sign it, their 4-person signed it that said we reject number 1 and we're okay with 2 and 3, and I revise that and write a paper that contains counts 2 and 3 verbatim as they were on the first go round, and then give that to the 4-person of the jury and say, these were the 2 you wanted, right? Yes. Sign that. Yes. That's an indictment. That's where you fail.
But you can't just present it to the foreman.
Right.
The whole grand jury has to see it and vote on it.
Yeah, and now lay people or I guess certainly Trump fans will say, well, it's the same thing, though. And that's
not the same thing.
It's not. It's a different piece of paper. And I know that sounds like a technicality, but the whole point of having the grand jury then review it is, how do I know that that's the same 2 counts? How do I know
maybe
that
you pick 2 other counts. Maybe you pick the one we said no and the one we said yes. We have to see it.
And you could say, well, the 4-person could check it and see that it's not. All right, fine. Then they'll have no problem presenting that to the grand jury.
And the foreman said, trust me. And the grand jury said, what's your name again? And the foreman said, Mike Johnson.
At the very least.
We said, we don't trust you. We want to see the rule of the
there could be even more
problems
with it, because it's possible, and in fact very likely, that the grand jury 4-person signed it at the urging of Halligan, who said, yeah, this is okay. They may have said, are you sure I don't have to bring this back? No, go ahead and sign it. That would be something. And given that we also are finding out that, I guess this was discovered because the judge said, I need to check something else. Show me the grand jury transcript and documentation, and was looking for something else and said, by the way, there's like 2 hours of their deliberation is missing from here, and various things, questions that they asked of the prosecutor and answers you gave, like what did they ask you and what did you tell them? It's not in the transcript. What? It's not? Uh-oh. And I mean, apparently the word is that at some point they may have asked and may have been instructed by Lindsey Halligan, oh yeah, by the way, if somebody pleads the 5th Amendment, you can take that to be an admission of guilt. No, you can't. That's the opposite. Did you tell them that? I don't know. It's not in the transcript, so I guess I didn't.
Well, wait a minute.
Hold on a
transcript, second. That part where you were talking about that, it's got ketchup all over it. I can't read it.
It's weird.
What did you do?
And then at that point, I guess, that the judge says, by the way, another thing that is not in here is the part where the grand jury said, yes, we'll indict him. Why is that missing? I'm not sure. And then, well, also I have these 2 papers here. Both of them say they're an indictment against Comey. One says it has 3 counts. One says it has 2 counts. And how did that happen? So apparently, the explanation is the first time when they said yes to 2 and 3, but no to 1, they like penciled in no on number 1.
They didn't do it right.
Yeah.
And she cheated. She tried to, shortcut the thing.
Yeah.
And she did it in an incompetent way.
Yes.
But this is such an egregious mistake. I don't think the judge has any choice but to say, no, this isn't how we do it.
Yeah. Plus, of course,
you figure out the legal reason. I'm not a lawyer, but this cannot stand.
Just to add an extra layer to it is the judge also has to recognize and has said as much. One of the reasons I think you made this mistake is that you were moving too quickly. And the reason you were moving too quickly is it was the last day before the statute of limitations on these crimes, these alleged crimes, expired. And so there's also probably not a real opportunity for you to go back and fix this. Like, couldn't we just get the grand jury together and redo the paper? And then in 5 minutes, they would say yes to this. You could have back then, but you didn't.
Can't now. Yeah.
And yeah.
So I don't know what his legal reasoning is going to be, but, it seems to me that the case is going to be dismissed. And if it isn't, travesty of justice.
Sure. And at this point, I think he should. This is, I guess, the reason why you should be able to hit the people with the gavel, actually, on their heads. when they come into court. And they rarely do that, and I think that the time is right for them to try. Put your fingers on my desk.
Well, this is old Rowan and Martin's laughing. Here come the judge.
This is really something. And
who was it? Pigmeat Markham. He's the one who used to hit everybody with the gavel.
Bring this back. See, I think there's an ancient tradition of that. It might just be television.
It's a modern tradition because I want to give you a modern example. It happened in the Texas redistricting case.
All right. Yes, please.
Right? Where the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Jerry Smith basically hit his fellow judges. He's the dissenter in the 2-1 decision that said that Texas wrongly used race to redo the redistricting.
I think they used it right.
And this fella says, no, it was all politics and that's perfectly legal. But that's not just what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm also saying each and every single one of my colleagues, especially one of them over here, another Trump appointee, is an idiot, a fool, a Soros-loving murderer, and
Soros made it into
amazing. He used Soros like 300 times in his dissent. Here's the story from Politico. Jeremiah, a wild dissent Royals Texas redistricting debate. You've never seen a judicial burn quite like this one. Smith, on the losing end of that 2-1 ruling, attacked the plaintiffs as tools of left-wing donors George and Alex Soros, who featured at least 17 times in the ruling. George and Alex Soros have their hands all over this. Smith said Gavin Newsom is going to be the main winner along with Judge George Soros. And Smith went after the plaintiffs' lawyers and advocates in intensely personal ways.
Piggy.
Although the Trump administration ended the federal government's role in the litigation earlier this year, Pambani said, yes, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. What?
Fellow jurist, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Brown, Galveston-based Trump appointee who authored Tuesday's ruling. The redistricting ruling is headed for the Supreme Court, of course.
Sure.
And Smith's umbrage appeared to stem from the speed in which Brown issued the ruling. This outrage speaks for itself, Smith wrote, only it didn't because then he kept going for like 100 pages.
Right. And it speaks for itself, and I will now also speak for it at great length.
Dissenting judges typically refer obliquely to the majority opinion, Smith's relentlessly personal and withering opinion using Brown's name more than 360 times, often accompanied by colorful insults like unskilled magician, prefers living in fantasy land, pernicious judicial misbehavior, wrong on multiple levels, and handing Soros a victory at the expense of the people of Texas and the rule of law. Remember, this is Fifth Circuit. If you ever wonder how come Fifth Circuit always rules in a bizarre way, this guy's on it. That's how.
I guess so, right. And they haven't together said, you should kick him off. I mean, they really can't, but no one has ever even hinted it because they're like, hey, he's a little wacky. That's how
Brown
wacky
did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Okay. Well, ordinarily he's very quick with the comment, apparently. Yeah. So I guess Judge was his name Smith? Brown and Smith, really? Are you sure?
Yeah.
This is not alias?
Jerry Smith and somebody, Smith.
All right. Well, he, I guess, I mean, I could
checked.
see him
None of
being
them were
upset.
named Herschel. There's no Herschel brothers.
He was just mad because he didn't get he wasn't able to print his dissent along with the ruling because the guy wanted to publish the majority wanted to publish the ruling right away. And that apparently set him off. And then I guess he said, as long as I've got all the time in the world, if I'm not going to make it by the deadline, I might as well write a real stem winder. But yeah, I mean, it's just unhinged. The Soros stuff, I think, is a pretty good illustration that he may be beyond his capacity to serve under general good behavior, let's say.
Well, sober is a judge's guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure he's sober. Is
judicial
just
affect.
Demented. So
but the weird thing is, so he did.
I'm ready
this.
for the weird thing. Yeah.
Well, you have Jonathan Adler and some of the conservative jurists and legalese guys and professors and such saying, well, Smith is obviously right on the merits, but I don't know about this tirade. It's not really going to help.
Okay. I think it's also not right on the merits, but all right.
Well, but the Supreme Court conservatives may decide it is because if you overrule it, it helps Republicans, and that's really what law's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I guess if to the extent that Roberts still worries about his reputation or whatever.
No, his reputation's already gone. I don't know that it
I don't
matters.
know. He still thinks he's got it, so I think might be worth something to exploit it if he thinks it's savable. If you overrule the Fifth Circuit here, you're validating the Smith opinion. Does that worry you? But I think it probably won't. Okay.
In the last 48 hours, Marquette also released a poll about how people think about the Supreme Court, as it happens.
All right.
And it turns out that this is not the lowest opinion of the Supreme Court that people have had.
All right. It isn't.
It's been minus 22, approve or disapprove. It's been minus 24. I think it's like in the teens here.
All right.
But it's been worse.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot better, obviously. There used to be a time that Supreme Court was respected.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not now.
Nope. Too bad. Have they got anything else?
Have they gotten anything else?
Yeah. Like maybe something that people would think was popular?
Supreme Court poll.
By the way, this is an extremely long phone call. If Marquette University calls you, you're going to be on the phone for an hour. How do they poll all this?
Done one of their surveys. They poll a lot of different things.
Okay. That's good. It's not all one thing, asking all those people.
Right.
Okay. That's
so
good.
Overall, how much do you approve or disapprove of the way the U.S. Supreme Court is handling its job? This was taken from November 5th through 12th, so it's just out. Strongly approve 10%, somewhat approve 44, somewhat disapprove 73, cumulative. That is to say, what do we got? 10% strongly approve, somewhat approve 35, somewhat disapprove 29, strongly disapprove 27.
Okay.
So they've got a 45% rating as opposed to 56 or so. And that's, 56-44 is what they get.
Okay.
Disapprove 56, approve 44. Not great, but,
Not great.
Not terrible. It's been worse.
All right. What if it gets worse next week?
12-point differential, they've been as low as 22. So just, in terms of what they think about, what the public thinks about Roberts, there it is. What he's going to do, I don't know.
All righty. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I should be taking care of business on this thing that just flew by on Blue Sky. I'm going to live post on Blue Sky just to put my favorite tagline here. Every Republican accusation. You know where I'm going in this. I got to spell it right. Accusation. Come on now, keyboard. Is a confession. Period. And we put a trademark on that one. Why am I saying this? And the answer is because if I don't say it while I'm typing it, I'm not going to be able to there'll be nothing on the air. But why am I saying that in particular? Because when Larry Tenney, hi Larry Tenney, how are you? He says he's ex-GOP and he's got an eye patch. Ooh, and I have an eye patch story for you if you want one. We can go to that afterwards. Ex-GOP, political campaigns and public affairs, former political science lecturer at UC Irvine, among other things, and then a bunch of other symbols and acronyms that are supposed to give you some idea of where he's coming from politically. And he now has a no kings emoji set after his name. Larry Tenney says, of course, every damn time. And that's not the phrase. The phrase is every Republican accusation is a confession, sir. Why? For what? Quickly, one of Charlie Kirk's lieutenants pleads guilty to election fraud. Womp womp. I have a womp womp, don't I? But it has a little weird sting in the middle of it. Let's see if I can edit that thing. Anyway, what's going on? It's happening in Arizona, where everything related to what's his face, Charlie Kirk happened, I guess, because that's where he lived. Arizona Mirror reports, thanks to Caitlin Severs, Turning Point leader, former GOP rep, really? Pleads guilty to attempted election fraud. Was he a state representative, perhaps? Former Republican state legislator Austin Smith, that's a real name, allegedly, pleaded guilty Monday to what he previously called ludicrous charges that he personally forged, personally forged more than 100 signatures on his petitions for re-election last year. The Republican from Surprise, he's from Surprise, Arizona. Surprise, all my petition is forged. Not actually a surprise because you're a Republican. We understand this. The Republican from Surprise was a member of the far-right Arizona Freedom Caucus, which has a history of spreading false claims of election fraud in the 2020 presidential election and pushed for election law changes in the state legislature, but not this one, apparently. As a part of his guilty plea today, Smith admitted signing the name of a deceased woman on one of his candidate nomination petitions in March of 2024. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays, is it Mays? We've struggled with this name before. Anyway, Chris says this in a statement. He also admitted that he attempted to deceive the Secretary of State's office by knowingly filing petitions containing forged signatures of purported supporters of his nomination for the Republican primary for state representative from Legislative District 29. I mean, if you can't even get people to say, if you're an incumbent and you can't get signatures, you know, something is way wrong with you. But even if you're not an incumbent, if you can't get signatures to get on the ballot for a primary, come on. Smith pleaded guilty to one count of attempted fraudulent schemes and practices, an undesignated offense, and to one count of illegal signing of an election petition, a misdemeanor. And by the way, this is usually something that people like him in fighting supposed election fraud will scream. That shouldn't be a misdemeanor. It should be treason and executable. Anyway, at the time that he was indicted, Smith was the strategic director of Turning Point Action, Turning Point USA's advocacy arm. TPUSA, of course, you know all about them, who they are, founded by Charlie Kirk. You know what happened to him. It was not connected. Well, I guess it was connected to the fact that he started Turning Point USA, isn't it? All right. Intimately connected. Anyway, a Maricopa County grand jury, I think, indicted Smith on June 2nd. They probably agreed to indict him and voted on it and then produced the proper paperwork to show there's... And by the way, I forgot to mention in all of my discussion of this with Greg, because there were so many points to get to in all of that, another fine example of another thing I say all the time, right? Trump and paperwork, man. I'm telling you, if you run into a policy decision or a law, well, maybe usually not a law because that ends up being handled by other people who are also likewise incompetent. You should check everything. But anything and everything that you want to fight Trump on, dig in. If there's paperwork, take a look at it. Because, as he says, if you take a look at the paperwork, somewhere along the line he will have screwed something up because Trump can't do it. And his people can't do it. They don't want to do it. They don't feel they should have to do it. They don't know how to do it, even if they agree that they should go ahead and do it anyway for optics purposes. They will have screwed something up. And it's such a long... I don't know. We've been at this for so long, I begin to forget the different examples. But I mean, starting from the very top, like, hey, this certificate that purports to be from the Electoral College voters from this state say Donald Trump won this state. He didn't win that state. Why do I have this document in front of me? Thank God it didn't make it all the way to the floor, but they forged Electoral College vote certificates, thinking they could just swap them and convince Mike Pence to say, well, I'll make a vice presidential determination here, the president of the Senate determination, that these are the real certificates and that those, the real ones with the seals and the signatures from the governor and all that stuff, are the fake ones. It doesn't make any sense. There's no evidence that I'm right. In fact, all evidence points in the opposite direction, but I am making a declaration that the opposite thing is true. Up is down, down is up, black is white, and that's that. And if I can get a majority of both houses to agree that that's the case, then sorry, you're all wrong about that. You were pre-wrong. And we've just changed reality. But that didn't happen. But they did forge those Electoral College certificates. Here, we just discussed at the top of the show, they forged a grand jury indictment. Here's this guy now forging his nomination petition. But there's so many other things, like it's not a forgery per se, but we're up to like 4, maybe more, 5 U.S. attorneys who were purported to be serving as interim or acting, not just acting, but acting U.S. attorneys, who, as it turns out, know their term and as interim or acting U.S. attorney has expired. And you're not entitled to just simply keep renominating them over and over again. And so that person is not the U.S. attorney or even the acting U.S. attorney, and we can't accept indictments signed by that person. But going back to before the election, in the interregnum, during one of Trump's various civil, I think, cases that was going on. Do you remember this one? I don't even recall which one this one was attached to, but that he was basically faking the paperwork for appeals bonds. He wanted to appeal the decision that he had lost in court, and if you do that in that state, you have to put up a bond worth the amount that you were liable for or something like that in order to guarantee that the plaintiff gets paid regardless if you finally lose the appeal. And they slapped together paperwork that appeared to be slipshod and partially forged just so he could go ahead with his appeal. I mean, just on every front. And of course, the things that he was convicted of in New York, right, was generally falsifying his financial statements for his companies. The Trump Organization financial reports were forged as well. This guy can't stop forging things, and the people around him, I guess, take their cues from him. They just don't feel like they have to follow the rules or document any of the things that they do. And then when they are confronted with judges who say you actually need documentation, they just forge it instead. It's really rather remarkable. All right, so where do we leave off with this thing? Right, grand jury indicted them, probably correctly, on June 2nd on 4 felony counts for presenting documents he knew were forged to the Arizona Secretary of State's office, 10 misdemeanor counts for personally forging the names of electors on his re-election petitions. He pleaded guilty to the reduced charges, to a set of reduced charges as a plea agreement that gives him the possibility of avoiding a felony conviction. So I guess he doesn't lose his guns. In Arizona law, when a person without a criminal history is found guilty of a low-level felony, the judge can wait until that person's probation is finished before designating the crime as a felony or misdemeanor. So essentially that would mean if Smith completes any probation he's sentenced to without violations, and that's a tall order for a guy like him, his conviction could be classified as a misdemeanor instead of a felony. And that's important because felons in Arizona can't vote or hold elective office until their rights are restored by a judge. I was throwing in the gun things there. I don't know. Maybe Arizona doesn't care if you're a felon with a gun. I don't know. But a lot of states do. But I guess his more immediate concern is my day job is holding elective office. So, per the plea agreement, Smith is to be sentenced to probation, a fine of at least $5,500, and will be banned for 5 years from seeking public office. But according to the Attorney General, some terms of the plea agreement are non-binding and could be rejected by the sentencing judge, like maybe the important one. Around the time he was accused of petition fraud in spring of 2024, Smith dropped his re-election bid and resigned from his position at Turning Point Action. But it's possible he's actually still working for Turning Point. So, by the way, if I'm the sentencing judge and I get information in front of me that says I publicly said I resigned, but I was in fact secretly working for Turning Point, I would say, yeah, so now the part where I can, at my discretion, suspend part of this thing, that's out. I'm not doing that. Not for a liar. Like, you're a forger to begin with, and then you got caught forging, and then basically you forged your resignation in order to see if you could get a lighter sentence for the forging you're on trial for. I don't think so. But hey, forget it, Jake. It's Arizona. Anything could happen. You get a Republican judge who's sympathetic to this guy, but honest to God, how soft on crime do you have to be? Every Republican accusation is a confession, even softness on crime. Wow. All right. So it's possible he's actually still working for Turning Point, according to Smith's LinkedIn and X accounts. I don't know if it's evidence, but All right. He was rehired in January as Turning Point Action's strategic director, but when news of his indictment was made public in June, Smith made his X account private, blocking his biographical information, including his job title, and either deleted his LinkedIn account or made it private. Is that what we're saying? That may be inconclusive, but I guess they're saying there's no conclusive proof that he's actually no longer working there, and there really should be in this situation. All right. When the allegations of signature fraud became public in April of 2024, Smith vehemently denied them, calling them ludicrous and accusing Democrats of creating a coordinated attack against him. It's a witch hunt, but actually I'm guilty. And then I confessed it later on. However, 100 of the signatures on his petition to get on last year's Republican primary ballot, along with the corresponding addresses, obviously look like they were all written by the same person. Like, can't you work this out? And some of the people whose names were on the petition told the court that they never signed it. I don't know how many signatures you have to have for something like this, but 100 of them are forged. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised if for a legislative race, a primary campaign for a legislative district race in Arizona, you probably maybe only need 100 signatures. And he just forged the whole thing rather than go out and talk to people. At the time, and I mean, all you have to do is stand outside the supermarket and say, for democracy. And people will sign anybody's petition for stuff like that. At the time, Smith took no accountability for the fraudulent signatures and said that he dropped out of the race because he didn't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars defending himself in the civil elections challenge, as well as possible criminal case for forgery. Well, I'm dropping out because I don't want to spend money to defend myself from criminal charges. Well, that's not going to stop you from having to do that, sir. Well, then another reason. Smith is scheduled to be sentenced by Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Aryeh Schwartz on January 6th. Okay, I mean, hopefully not a MAGA weirdo. I don't know a lot of MAGA weirdos named Aryeh Schwartz, but there could be some. And if they were some, they would live in Arizona. I promise you that. Neither Smith nor Turning Point USA Action immediately responded to a request for comment. Would anyone like to request my comment? I gave it along the way. I have already responded. But however, if the request is currently being made, I refuse to comment because I want to move on to another story. That's kind of fascinating. On 10 levels, every accusation is a confession from these guys. And he's a young-looking twerp here, too. So, good. I don't know. I would say throw the book at him, but, it's a very light book, apparently. They're looking to let him go. It's very sad. I mean, considering that when these guys keep saying that if there's election fraud by Democrats, it's treason and you should execute people who are involved in things like that. And then you get caught and you're like, oh, come on, please, it's a misdemeanor. Can't I also keep my job? I said there was, what were we talking about? Where were Larry Tenney himself who referred us to this story, has an eye patch in his, avatar picture. Whether it's really even a picture of him, I have no idea. Maybe it's some kind of inside joke. Maybe it's not a joke at all, and he has an eye patch. And I said, I have more eye patch news. What's my eye patch news? The most famous Republican eye patch we know is that of Dan Crenshaw. And guess what? He's in trouble too. Although here, I don't know that he's ever accused anybody else of having this problem. So we can't say that every Republican accusation is a confession unless it's just basically generalized bad behavior. Republicans have now banned, this is the headline over at Alternet, Republicans ban GOP rep from international travel after, quote, alcohol-related episode, report. I always kind of hate that, but all right, it's a weird construction. You got the idea. House Republican leadership recently took action, and that was news all by itself, to bar one of their own members from international trips, according to a new report. Punchbowl News reported on Wednesday that GOP leaders decided to ban Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican of Texas, from traveling for 3 months due to an, quote, alcohol-related episode, unquote, in Mexico this summer. And come on. What's life for if not to have alcohol-related episodes in Mexico over the summer? But, I don't know what to tell you. That's what's going on, and I guess that's the recourse that's available to them. I'm not reading it to you from Punchbowl News because I think that is I think that's subscription based, and I don't have a subscription to it. So I'm relying instead on the good offices of Alternet, who I guess does have a subscription and was able to read this and repeat this to me for free. So what happened? In details laid out by Punch Bowl reporter Andrew Desiderio, and thank you very much for acknowledging the work of the reporter here. They're good people over there at Alternet. Carl Gibson, who wrote this up for them, made sure to credit the reporter right up at the top. Well, according to Andrew Desiderio, the original incident took place, there's more incidents, took place while Crenshaw and other Republicans were on an official congressional delegation visit to Mexico in August. And by the way, they throw in the lingo there. A congressional delegation on the Hill is known as a CODEL. We're military cosplayers. We make everything into an acronym. So a CODEL to Mexico in August, which, by the way, why? I don't know, but they were doing it. I thought that was one of those countries that Republicans hated, but instead he went there. And while he was there, Crenshaw was, quote, having drinks with a group of Mexican officials, unquote. I believe that. I don't think we really have to quote that, but and that's the reason that you would go to Mexico in August as a Republican, because we're on recess. There are drinks to be had. So that's why I will go to Mexico and then come back and say, Mexico's horrible and terrible and we hate their guts. Anyway, one Mexican official cracked a crude joke that made a woman present uncomfortable. Crenshaw toasted the remarks, not roasted the remarks, but toasted the remarks. Like, here's to what that guy just said. I don't know exactly. I mean, this is a very intentionally vague description of it, but this gets at the heart of it. A crude joke is cracked. It's sexist. And Crenshaw, I guess. And Crenshaw says, here's to that sexism, I guess. You just committed a sexism and here's to it. I mean, we don't know what the nature of the joke is. It is possible that the woman present was black and it was a racist joke. And here's to your racism, sir. I'm not certain what it was. But the implication is that it's sexist because it made a woman present uncomfortable, and you usually present things in those terms, you know, and you can't repeat the joke. But I guess there's any number of things. It was an anti-Semitic joke, and the woman present was black and Jewish. And so you get the point. The point is they made an inappropriate joke, and someone who was there was uncomfortable, and rather than either say nothing, which wouldn't be helpful, but at a minimum it would be required for you. Instead, Crenshaw says, that's awesome. I endorse that by raising my glass and then drinking. Following the August CODEL, Crenshaw reportedly met with House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford. Now, I guess that's his boss and that he's on that committee, but this is interesting. So they go on the August CODEL. Nothing happens there. There's no authorities to step in and do something right on the spot. But anyway, the rest of the story turns out that the people who were accusing of him of this misbehavior, also have other reason to be angry at him, and it might have kind of crossed over and cross-pollinated. So he meets with the Speaker and House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford of Arkansas. Desiderio's sources told him that the meeting grew heated and that Crawford apparently wanted Crenshaw kicked off of the prestigious committee. Johnson reportedly didn't strip Crenshaw of his seat on the committee, though the Texas Republican was banned from international travel for 90 days. Crenshaw's cartel task force was also it wasn't that it was stripped from him, it was disbanded entirely, which tells you about the seriousness of Republicans and accusations against cartels. Oh, actually, we don't really care very much about that. It was just someplace to put Crenshaw to give him a national perch. And now that we're not letting him have it, to hell with investigating cartels, I guess. That's very revealing all by itself. Why doesn't he strip him of his seat on the committee? That would probably have taken a vote of the entire Republican conference. It was August. They were on recess. Then they, of course, left after the preceding, in fact, the shutdown, and stayed out for another month and a half. So there's been no opportunity for the conference to meet and decide to do that. They may also not actually agree to do that. It's not clear. But something that Johnson can probably do unilaterally is bar him from travel by saying this, by direction of the Speaker, you can't reimburse him for official expenses and you can't approve of official expenditures from your office for international travel for the next 90 days. And that's probably something he can do unilaterally. So there you go. Desiderio further reported that Crenshaw and Crawford were squabbling over appropriations for counterintelligence programs in the annual legislation to fund intelligence agencies, which they also, by the way, haven't passed. So who cares? Crawford has been pushing for additional funding and was reportedly frustrated with Crenshaw's lack of support for the plan. That's not a reason to strip him of his committee seat, but okay. But drunkenness might be. Those funds were ultimately included in the version of the bill that reached the House floor, but to no effect because I guess the Senate didn't take them up. All right, or is intelligence one of the three bills that I don't think that was mentioned among the three that had actually passed and would therefore be fully funded for the year in the CR that reopened the government. Okay, just to keep it connected to your other stories if you want to trace those other threads. So, okay, Dan Crenshaw, you can write a note to yourself from now on. Don't toast other people's racism, sexism, or anti-Semitism. Basically, any of the isms. I'm not certain which one it was. Maybe all three. You can just keep quiet and just say, the guy said it in Spanish. I didn't understand it, or I didn't want to embarrass him, but it was inappropriate. Better if you say, actually, that's not cool at all, sir. Please don't say things like that. You're making people uncomfortable. But he's a Republican, so he doesn't believe in that stuff. And now it's costing him because someone else disliked him for a different reason. Aha. Good reason. If that's your only motivation to denounce racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, or homophobia, or God only knows what else it might have been, then let that happen. I don't care what your ulterior motives are. Denounce bad stuff. It's just good policy. All right. So other news. Oh, something we probably should have discussed with Greg there. All right. I'll save that one for later. This doesn't really have every accusation is a confession parallel because Republicans, well, I don't know. I don't think specifically that Republicans are frequently accusing Democrats of falsifying assaults against them, but Republicans are constantly falsifying assaults against themselves. And so it's just sort of unilateral problem that they have. Another Republican has gone to the police saying, I was assaulted by mean, horrible, socialist, communist, Antifa, jihadist Democrats. And look at the terrible thing that they did to me. There's physical evidence of their crime. I say we kill them all. And then it turns out, oh, you did that to yourself. Oh, how many examples are there? I don't remember the name of the person, and it's probably best that I don't look it up either, who carved the bee in their face, and they did it backwards, which is, I have to say, if I haven't said this recently, it's the most astonishing cell phone I've ever seen in my life. You remember this. She carved a bee in her face saying she was attacked by Barack Obama supporters. And this was way back pre-Trump era. And they beat her up, and to really drive the point home, they carved a bee in her face, branding her for Barack Obama. And, well, okay. Issue number one, like John McLaughlin used to say, issue number one, the bee is backwards. She carved it in her own face in a mirror. It's, so that was a problem. Second, and not as frequently discussed, wouldn't you think that, like generally speaking, if you're out there for bloodlust for Barack Obama, and we're going to attack somebody and we're going to brand them, don't you do it with an O for Obama? And I mean, there's no way to do an O backwards, and it's a much easier shape, right? And I'm wondering, like, did she sit there and think, oh, well, it'd be O for Obama? And then she's beginning on it and saying, well, but it's just a circle, really, at that point. How can I prove that it's an O for Obama? It's got to be a B for Barack, which is just not something anybody would do to you. Neither is carving anything in your face. But what can I tell you? Anyway, there's another one. But there's a long tradition of this. It just recently happened again somewhere else. And, of course, Nancy Mace insisting that someone had drawn an anarchy symbol on her front steps, and they did that one goofy and wrong. And, let's see, the guy with the spray paint on his garage door, like Black's Rule or something like that. It was really, there's so many examples of it. Well, there's a new one, and I would tell it to you right now, except I need a 2-minute breather to get set for this one. We'll make short work of it. It's just fun to know that it's the case. And then, I don't know, we'll probably talk about some super serious things after that. But golly, who knows what will break over the next 2 minutes or so. And I don't know. I was going to spend more time on the courtroom stuff, but I think Greg really drove the point home on those, as astonishing as they are. All right. Again, a break. We'll be back with another fake attack. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. By the way, as we were saying during the coverage of, Austin Smith's confession of election fraud in Arizona, and pointing out that Republicans are constantly insisting that this sort of election fraud is punishable by death. Another kind of behavior Republicans, and in fact, the biggest Republican they've got, Donald Trump, is claiming is punishable by death. And I don't even know exactly what he's referring to here. But earlier in the program, I noticed, I didn't mention it, but I noticed at the time on Blue Sky, someone pointing out that Trump had reposted, or as he says on Truth Social, retruthed somebody else's post saying someone else had done something and it was treason and they were guilty and that they should be executed. And people said, oh, it's just the president calling for someone's execution, no big deal. But, you could say, well, it's him, retruthing. I mean, he shouldn't be. He should be more responsible than that and not be. What was it here? It was, a rando person on Truth Social, P78. I don't know. Might be a Nazi for all I know. Replying to the Washington Examiner about their story about God only knows what with the phrase, hang them. This is, by the way, this is the punctuation of it. It was all in caps. Hang them, George Washington Wood, 2 exclamation points. Space, 2 exclamation points. In addition to that, there's an extra space. Yes, there should be a comma in there. George Washington, in all likelihood, wouldn't have hanged them. I mean, he pardoned the Whiskey Rebellion and Shays Rebellion folks in the end. But although I don't know, I guess there were a couple of hangings involved in that, but generally speaking, an amnesty for the rest. But I think only after hanging 1 or 2 people. So maybe he's right about that one. Anyway, Donald J. Trump, allegedly president of the United States, retruthed that. What were they talking about? That I don't even know. Maybe because it's breaking in the moment and you went and take a look at it. I don't know what the Washington Examiner is doing. Who effing cares? But anyway, if you were interested in, or just would come to the conclusion that, well, he retruthed somebody else's strident language, is he really calling for their execution? Well, he's cleared it up because he's Donald Trump and has in fact posted directly about what I don't know, about whom I don't know, all caps, seditious behavior, comma, lowercase, punishable by uppercase death. So now it's direct. And, as News Eye points out here, just the president calling for the execution of his political opponents. Watch Absolutely Zero front pages cover this tomorrow. Probably true. And our good friend on social media, Dr. Dry Skulls, Sky Skull, he's a bit dry as well, now that I think about it. His humor is dry. But Dr. Sky Skull saying, like I said, he's panicking enough to throw us into civil war. And golly, if that isn't on the nose. Anyway, in the meantime, somebody else panicking enough or to attempt to drive us to civil war being reported on in New Jersey. It's especially, or as some New Jerseyans say, especially interesting because it involves an aide to one of Greg's favorites, Jeff Van Drew. And she worked for, I don't know if she's still employed by Jeff Van Drew, and she's got very flamboyant earrings on in this photograph. And, he's a flamboyant dresser. So they all like flashy accessories. So that's nice. They all hang together and have that in common. The New Jersey Globe, with which I am not familiar, but as I scroll down, I see that it is a story written by David Wildstein, and I think you may recognize that name. And that goes way back. He's a bit of a weirdo and always been a bit of a weirdo, but a very politically active and I guess politically influential in New Jersey anyway, blogger who was wrapped up in Chris Christie's stuff and the George Washington Bridge crazy. But I don't know, he's just got I forget all the dumb things that he's been involved in. But anyway, he's happy enough to report on dumb stuff that Republicans do too. So it's of some interest here. What's going on here? Where's the headline on this? There it is. Ex-Van Drew staffer. So I guess that's the answer for that one. Staged fake attack, writing Trump whore across her own stomach, and alleging men held her down and cut her body. That's bad news all around. And I'm a little concerned for her self-esteem, writing Trump whore across her. But she's saying that other people did it, and they're the ones that have the mental health issues, except there weren't any other people. So it's really both. Both of those problems are yours. Poor Natalie Green, apparently. And I say this, I don't mean to sympathize with her for faking the crime, but this is someone who needs mental health treatment. Natalie Green charged today, that is to say yesterday, by U.S. attorney in bizarre hoax. And the bizarre hoax is not the U.S. attorney charging her, as is the case with James Comey, Letitia James, Lisa Cook, and others, but rather her own bizarre hoax with which she's being hit with charges by somebody who is presumably the U.S. attorney in New Jersey, but I don't know if we know who that is, because it's not Alina Habba. So what's going on here? I mean, just keeping those other storylines in mind. A 26-year-old Ocean City woman, not Ocean City, Maryland, as people here in this DMV area might think, but Ocean City, New Jersey. A 26-year-old Ocean City woman who claimed she was brutally assaulted because she worked for Representative Jeff Van Drew, now a Republican, of Ocean City, instead orchestrated the entire incident, paying a scarification artist to wound her and staging the scene with zip ties and Trump whore written on her stomach and Van Drew is a racist on her back, federal prosecutors alleged today. And honestly, the biggest tip-off here to me is the mention of Jeff Van Drew. You wrote Jeff Van Drew is a racist on this woman's back? Yes. Who is Jeff Van Drew? I mean, come on. Now, I'll give her points for planning this one. She was zip-tied, apparently, which means I guess she had an accomplice, because otherwise, like, if she, imagine her first go at this. This is why it took so long to get this thing done. And then I zip-tied myself, and then I realized I can't write Trump whore on my stomach now because I'm zip-tied. She zip-tied herself behind her back or in front. Maybe she did it herself. Let's read on. Natalie Green, a Rutgers law student. Really, and by the way, I don't know if there's a class at any point that says you're not allowed to fake stuff like this, but there should be. Anyway, a Rutgers law student allegedly concocted the hoax in July with an accomplice, there. Got to have an accomplice somewhere along the line if you're zip tied. Making a late night 911 call to report that she had been ambushed by 3 men on a nature trail in Egg Harbor Township. So a little bit of Great Gatsby stuff going on there as well. Police officers found Green bound with black zip ties, her shirt pulled up over her head, and the political slurs scrawled across her torso, not cut into her, but scrawled in marker, apparently. She told police that her supposed attackers had a gun and threatened to shoot her and struck her in the head. Prosecutors say nearly every detail was fabricated. Green allegedly drove to Pennsylvania and paid a body modification artist $500 to carve the wounds on her face, neck, and upper body using a pattern that she had provided in advance. And let me just say at this point, a scarification artist is just not something I knew there to be. But I guess if you think about it now, okay, I mean, there are weirder trends. And of course, I imagine they are related to tattoo artists and piercing artists, etc. Although it's real dedication to the bit to scar your face with this stuff. So I find that interesting all by itself. I can see, if you're going to do this and try this thing, well, scar me in a place that I can cover up with normal clothing because this is fake. And I guess if I can choose how I'm wounded and where, all right. But she didn't do that. I found that to be interesting. And to be able to find such a person. All right. So they paid him $500 to carve wounds on her face, neck, and upper body using a pattern she had provided in advance. Investigators later found matching zip ties in her. This is something, too. This is a 26-year-old student and working for a representative, not a high-paying job. And so when I say she needs mental health treatment, I'm guessing her family can afford it. Where were the zip ties, the extra zip ties found? In her car. I could just leave it at that. But I think I'll tell you, as David Wildstein points out, in her Maserati SUV. Wow. I mean, I don't know. This is a person I would say, you might not really have a whole lot of problems in life. What are you so upset and depressed about? And the answer is, it's not in her control. It's not reason that's doing this. It's mental illness that's doing this. I'm diagnosing her from afar. It's true. But I don't think you're going to find me some expert. You could find experts to say, don't do this diagnosis remotely. No, my question to you is the diagnosis wrong, though? You're not wrong. You just shouldn't diagnose this way, especially you. You're not even a psychiatrist. All right. So moving on from her Maserati SUV, cell phone records show that 2 days before the purported attack, her co-conspirator searched online for, quote, zip ties near me. That, according to, that's a discovery that authorities cited as further proof that the incident was staged. Yes, I think that works. As it's circumstantial evidence, to be sure, but it's pretty powerful as circumstantial evidence goes. Zip ties near me, which also, I guess at this point, let me just say that between the two of them, they were capable of procuring a Maserati SUV, though they didn't use that for the crime. But I mean, actually, that's not that easy to find. I mean, yes, go to a Maserati dealer, but I mean, you tell me, what's the closest Maserati dealer to you? Okay. That I would have to look up. I am not sure where to find a Maserati around here. I probably could, but where? Zip ties? Anywhere. Anywhere. Grocery store, hardware store. They got Maserati SUVs. They know a scarification artist who for $500 will carve a pre-patterned wounds on your face and neck. That they got no problem with. Zip ties they had to Google. I find that unusual. These people are unusually out of touch with reality, to say the least. Okay. Ready? There's more. Here's some pictures. Oh, this is very interesting. They have photos of the scrawling, and then you can see the wounds on her upper back in one of these photos. And quite honestly, that's some major work. And I also don't know how they were going to allege to the police that this stuff was recent, because this looks healed. But all right, that might be what gave it away to them. There are two pictures, both provided by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and one is of her front, her front of her torso. Trump whore. It's very clearly written across, like, near the belly button area. And on her back is, well, we're told it says Jeff Andrew is a racist. But what's funny about it, the photo is we see is racist, and then above it a big black redaction box that has typed across it federal official 1. They're protecting Jeff Drew. He may not be a racist. Don't just publish things that say he's a racist. That's not right. Yeah, okay. I like the attention to detail. So points for somebody, even if it's not Alina Habba on this one. All right. So she said, Natalie did, that one or more of her attackers had held her down, cutting her and writing on her body, that also kind of gives it away. So they were cutting you badly enough to make scars all over your body, but then they held you down. I guess they must have really squashed you, like that they could write on you and it's legible. Seems, like you would be squirming. Well, they wrote first and then they cut me. All right, that's a story. Several days later, after receiving medical treatment for her wounds, Green was again asked to describe her alleged attack to law enforcement officers, including an agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is worthless now because Kash Patel runs it. Interviews of Green and the co-conspirator did not match. Well, that's not surprising either. And also, I guess, she got medical treatment for the wounds. I'm just interested because, like, at that point, probably the doctors said, we treated her wounds, but quite honestly, it was very weird. They were pretty clean, and they didn't look like they were immediately recent either, which I assume this raises questions for our scarification artists too. In the world in which it's okay for somebody to make money carving scars on people, presumably it's because they make a personal choice. But also, I assume that, like tattoo artists and piercers, there's some, minimum basic hygiene practice. And, like, I'm not going to do this to you without also, treating the wounds and putting antibiotic ointment on it and covering it up so that you heal properly. Like, the idea is to make a scar here, not for you to bleed to death for $500. You don't need to pay me to, cut you badly enough that you just bleed out and die. You're presumably paying for the expertise that not only the artistry will be correct to your specifications, but you won't bleed out and die and you won't become infected. So, like, you get to the hospital. I've just been brutally attacked by people who then applied Bactine to me. It's going to be hard to explain. Anyway, I'm sure her excuse was, I definitely didn't do it to myself. My hands were zip tied. Don't you see? You have a point there, but I have other questions. Investigators used cell tower locations to obtain video footage and evidence that she went to a dollar store in Ventnor to purchase the zip ties. So her friend did the Googling. And by the way, that's an interesting way of coming up with it too. Like I said, you can find them pretty much anywhere. What they identified was the dollar store. So we do want to keep the costs down for the Maserati girl here to get those things. And they went to, it was in Ventnor, New Jersey. And if you're recognizing that, we told you it was down in Ocean City, Ocean County. And that's the Atlantic City environs. And yes, I presumably Ventnor, referring to Ventnor Avenue. It's one of the light. Is it the light blue properties or the purple properties? I can't remember. The low rent areas, I guess, back in the day when they invented Monopoly. So yes, probably the same Ventnor. Green appeared before U.S. Magistrate Judge Elizabeth Pascal earlier today and was charged with one count of conspiracy to convey false statements and hoaxes. And that's an interesting charge. I never heard about that one. And one count of making false statements to federal law enforcement. Oh yeah, that's supposed to be interesting and dangerous to do. According to, guess who's involved in this case? It's acting U.S. attorney and special attorney, because that's how she's holding on to office at all, Alina Habba. She was released on a $200,000 unsecured bond. That is amazing. And I guess it's a wonder that she chose to charge her at all. The complaint did not identify the federal official because of the redaction, but the New Jersey Globe has confirmed that it was Van Drew. The co-conspirator has not been identified. It's Van Drew. I have no reason to believe it's Van Drew, but that would be something. She began working part-time for Van Drew in 2022, which I guess is how she could afford a Maserati SUV, and later served as his constituent advocate. She started law school, which costs nothing and in fact pays you money so that you can afford a Maserati SUV, last fall. So maybe she didn't get to that class yet that says you're not supposed to do this. A statement from Van Drew's congressional office said they were, quote, deeply saddened by today's news. While Natalie is no longer associated with the congressman's government office, our thoughts and prayers are with her and hope she's getting the care she needs, the Van Drew office said. So there you go. A responsible statement from them. That's really something. Now some more shots of the scars. And to be honest, this woman needs help. This is extensive scarring work. No real reason why anybody who was really scarring you up for an attack would do it this way, but she's made it it's going to look very dramatic. And it does look more recent than I thought. But it's, on the other hand, the extent of the scarring, there would be some serious bleeding. There's scars on her neck here. I mean, she could have had a major artery or vein severed here by somebody who was really intent on doing damage. Wow. Anyway, so she doesn't know. I don't know whether it's something they terminated her from the office prior to that or afterwards or whatever. Also, I guess it would be in his best interest to terminate her if she's having people write Jeff Van Drew as a racist on her body. Yeah, you're not going to want her employed in the office if you can help it. Okay, law enforcement asked Green whether the words written on her were similar to those on postcards sent to Van Drew's South Jersey office. There's so many. I mean, yeah, racist. Windmills belong on your grave. Oh my God, what does that mean? I don't know. Like stupid. I mean, like they have a bunch of little things on there that they'll write on there. We have them all. You can look at all of them, she said. But, yeah, we keep them just. We keep all our hate mail. We recently got, like, a letter with, like, powder in it and stuff. A couple of the politicians got, like. All right, normally they clean those statements up a little bit, but, you got it verbatim there. And I guess she's there trying to prove that there really are people out there who think Jeff Van Drew is a racist and might attack a staffer. They're that angry about it because, after all, he gets hate mail. That's not really going to do it, but there you have it. So, wow. More photos from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I guess the picture of her being found bound up and out on the ground somewhere. No shoes on. Shirt. I don't even see the shirt on her at all, but she's not stripped bare. She's got her underclothes on here, but feet bound, presumably with the zip tie. And as far as if you're wondering about the hands, yes, it's behind the back. So there was a lot of staging went into this one, and it's tragic. This girl appeared to have a lot going for her, including a Maserati SUV and a nice job and money for law school. But wow. Anyway, that's happening out there. And it keeps happening. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be a faked attack somewhere where the person alleging the attack was a Democrat. But I just keep seeing it happen with Republicans and young Republicans at that. It's very odd what's happening to people's brains these days. All right. So weird and sad news on that front. Let's see. In other legal news, I mean, I really do think we've done enough, although there was other interesting commentary on the now obviously fake grand jury indictment in the Comey case. And there's 10,000 reasons why you should dismiss that case, and all very interesting. Another bit of legal wrangling that's going to have to be dealt with in the courts is out there and in need of discussion. And wow, let's take a look at this piece from, is it in Slate? I got to scroll back and find the thing here. But having to do with redistricting cases. So Greg mentioned that at present, the attempted new congressional and I guess state legislative maps in Texas have been thrown out, mostly because the court found that the correspondence between the White House, the DOJ, officials in Texas, that they were basically blatant and open in saying you should redraw the district, one, to give us a partisan advantage, and two, the way you do it is you do a racism and draw the lines to disadvantage minority voters. Could you please do that? Yeah, we can, but this is bad correspondence. It's bad for the whole evidence part of the trial. Anyway, in the meantime, I think we made brief mention of the fact that, of course, Texas was doing this thing. California at some point began down this road by saying, well, if Texas is going to do it, then we're going to do it, and we're going to do it in the opposite direction. But what that didn't mean was we're also going to do a racism in order to do it. And two, they at some point abandoned the idea of doing it. Well, we're only going to do this if Texas goes through with it. So it no longer matters that Texas is having its map thrown out. California is committed to this course of action regardless. And at some point, they even jettisoned the language that said we're only doing this if Texas does, which was great advice. I don't think it was my advice that they were taking, but I was reminded that a couple of weeks ago, I did say to the extent that we're going to do this and there's triggering language, they should just throw out the triggering language. One, because some of those maps may be thrown out and that'll put you, that'll make things awkward just based on that alone. But you have every right to go ahead and do this stuff. If it's illegal to redistrict in between censuses, then let's say so, and let's have a court say so for everyone and forever. But since they've so far not been willing to say that, then don't worry about the fact that the Republicans aren't going ahead with their thing. You are way behind as it is. Decades now of Republican shenanigans redistricting this way and for these reasons. And that's why you find yourself in a situation where, despite the fact that millions more ballots are being cast for Democrats in Congress, you still have a Republican-controlled Congress because of all the previous gerrymandering for these reasons and with these methodologies, and no answer from Democrats. So don't worry about what they're doing. You should be doing this to make up for not lost ground, but stolen ground all along. So go for it. Slate has this angle on it, though, thanks to Matthew Cook and Richard L. Hazen, whose name we occasionally call, I think he's quoted fairly frequently as a legal expert, a professor, I think, right? Anyway, now responsible for the article, so he can quote himself. The whole thing is a quote of himself. Slate writes or publishes, Republicans are suing to kill California's pro-democratic gerrymander. They have a huge problem. It's mental, but that's not the one they're talking about. California Republicans, now joined by the Trump administration's Department of Justice, which I'm now calling, by the way, instead of DOJ, I call them the DOJK. Just kidding, we didn't really get an indictment against you. We forged it. Have now sued California in federal court to stop implementation of Proposition 50, a voter-passed ballot measure that creates a Democratic gerrymander of the state's congressional districts, adding up to 5 more Democratic seats. And that's an important part of it, too, by the way. Voter-passed ballot measure becomes important later, I think. The lawsuit argues that the legislature had an unconstitutional race-focused intent on the state's Latino voters when it passed the maps. And by the way, there you can certainly insert every Republican accusation as a confession, because what ended up happening here is you did exactly that in Texas. You must think that everybody does that in order to redistrict, but guess what? They didn't. That's the issue. In fact, whatever the legislature intended should be irrelevant to the Republicans' claim, and they will likely lose because California voters were acting, not the legislature. The legislature did act, but only because the California voters approved it, and they were acting with a predominantly political, not racial intent. If Republicans lose the Prop 50 lawsuit and the United States Supreme Court does not interfere with a new federal district court ruling putting Texas's new gerrymander on hold for 2026, Democrats could end up with an advantage going into 2026, even as the Supreme Court contemplates even more changes in redistricting rules in its pending case out of Louisiana. The Republicans' main argument in this case, and it involves pronouncing a name that I'm not ready to attempt. The California legislature violated the 14th and 15th Amendments in the Constitution when it drew new congressional district lines based on race. I can't believe that they would do such a thing. Specifically to favor Hispanic voters without cause or evidence to justify it. Plaintiffs in this particular case argue that 16 California congressional districts are unconstitutional racial gerrymanders in violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. To succeed on such a claim, a plaintiff must first show that when a state drew district lines, it made race the predominant factor in doing so. And second, that no compelling reason justified it. When a state makes political considerations, traditional districting criteria, or something else the prominent or predominant factor in drawing the lines rather than race, a racial gerrymandering case fails on the first prong. And basically that's it. That's the difference. In Texas, for some dumb reason, the White House said, do me a racial gerrymander. And in California, they said, let's do a political gerrymander to make up for the racial gerrymandering they're doing in Texas. There's just prima facie evidence that these are two different approaches to redistricting. What's going to be really amazing is when Alito gets a chance to review some of this stuff and tries to tie the two of them together, despite outright declarations from the two different cases that the motivations are entirely different. It's going to cause a problem for him, but he'll overcome it. I think he can do it.
From netrootsradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Oh, and by the way, I don't mean that he could do it logically. I just mean I think he can reach that conclusion. All right, speaking of reaching conclusions, Justice Putnam gets a chance to reach some conclusions next with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next, right here on Netroots Radio. And guess who's at the top of the list here today? Judge Boasberg. He announced that he'll reopen the criminal contempt charges against the self-appointed king and his courtiers. Stay tuned.